And Charles, I know you're going to be tickled by this review in particular. Some of your former brethren in the Fourth Estate, including this panel on Face the Nation, where they discuss, very soberly, at least they present as such, the stories we underreported, because they're always trying to do better, because they come from a place, we're supposed to believe, of true interest in comforting the afflicted and afflicting the comfortable, as Finley Peter Dunn used to say. They want to enlighten Americans, to offer them a better understanding of the world. They're not political hacks in service of particular candidates in a political party. No, perish the thought. So Jen Crawford kicks off this discussion, and Robert Costa closes it. Jan Crawford kicks it off. Robert Costa closes it. Robert Costa, boy, his journey from National Review to the WAPO to CBS News, very interesting. The most underreported story in 2024.
That would be, to me, Joe Biden's obvious cognitive decline that became undeniable in the televised debate.
At the presidential debate with Donald Trump.
Unquestioned. And, it's starting to emerge now that his advisors kind of managed his limitations. It's been reported in the Wall Street Journal for 4 years. And yet he insisted that he could still run for president. We should have much more forcefully questioned whether he was fit for office for another 4 years, which could have led to a primary for the Democrats. It could have changed the scope of the entire election. Yet still, incredibly, we read in the Washington Post that his advisors are saying that he regrets that he dropped out of the race. That he thinks he could have beaten Trump. And I think that is either delusional or they're gaslighting.
President
American
Biden
people.
has said repeatedly he was sick during the debate June 27th in Atlanta, and he's always been fine, and he leaves fine. That is his position, the position of many of his top aides as well, even though there is that reporting.
Robert Costa.
Well, thank you for
who
reminding
was that
us
last
of
voice?
Robert Costa. Thank you for reminding us of the official position. Thank you for restating it. Very dutiful of Robert Costa.
Yeah, he sounded, he sounds a lot like, Stephanopoulos.
Yeah, he sounds like he should be on Russia Today or This Week, which is indistinguishable, at least in terms of demeanor, in terms of approach to news reporting. So just to point out, this Jan Crawford, I keep saying Jan Crawford line of argumentation, God, in retrospect, we missed that one.
Yeah, we
missed that one. Except after the debate, even if you accept the run up to the debate, which I don't, but after the debate, they were still, Jan Crawford and her comrades in the D.C. press corps were still allowing the Ally Mayorkases and the Kamala Harrises and all the flacks for the administration, KJP, to say the same thing they were saying before the debate. It didn't get any more probing, even despite Jan Crawford saying after the debate, it was obvious he didn't have the mental capacity to continue. But just a little refresher on what it was like pre as well as post June debate.
But
does the president have the stamina, physically and mentally, do you think, to continue on even after 2024?
Don, you're asking me this question. Oh my gosh, he's the president of the United States. I can't even keep up with it.
The most difficult part about a meeting with President Biden is preparing for it, because he is sharp, intensely probing, and detail-oriented and focused.
I can testify because I've been working very closely with this president for the past 2 years. I've been knowing him for 30 years. And I'm telling you, this guy's tough. He's smart. He's on his game.
Joe Biden has vision. He has knowledge. He has a strategic thinker.
The president is focused.
Right up until he no longer possessed any of those things. They decided he didn't possess any of those things. And then the D.C. press corps dutifully pushed that narrative because they served as the comm shop for the Democrat Party, which that's what they are.
And, the thing that really strikes me about the panel discussion is that those people speak of themselves as though they are the be-all, end-all. Like they don't understand that there's another world out there in the media, actually, and they think of themselves as the end of it. That this whatever they say goes. I mean, you were saying it. We were saying it on this program that Joe Biden had lost it. I mean, years ago.
Right. We didn't need. I mean, all the Wall Street Journal did before Christmas in that article we recounted, which was good reporting, was confirm what we all knew to be true, which is that he wasn't fit for the job, and all the people around him knew it because it was so patently obvious, and he made it obvious with, every other utterance in public life. So this was not some riddle to be solved, something that could be missed by anybody who was paying even passing attention. And so this sort of, like you're saying, this sort of self-referential pablum about, gosh, in retrospect, the only thing that they are upset about, Jan Crawford and gang, in retrospect, is that the outcome was not what they desired. In retrospect, we should have pushed him out earlier so we could have had a primary. But, we went along with the official story. And then when he was pushed out, we went along with the next official story. And maybe like George Clooney, we feel a little bit bad about how it turned out for us. For more on this, we're pleased to be joined by Gerard Baker, editor-at-large, Wall Street Journal, author of American Breakdown, Why We No Longer Trust Our Leaders and Institutions and How We Can Rebuild Confidence. No, there couldn't be a book with a more timely title and topic than that. Gerard Baker, thanks for joining us again. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. Happy New Year to you both.
Happy New Year. And so this, it's a sort of not really a mea culpa, but it's sort of, gosh, we could do better. Kind of, this is their overture to try to, salvage some credibility. That's the one play. And then the other play from those same sorts from the establishment legacy media in D.C. is like the Jennifer Rubin at the Washington Post or the Never Trumpers that just continue to ridicule Trump voters as being sort of, inbred, knuckle-dragging illiterates.
Yeah, I mean, the Biden incapacity stuff that you've talked about, it's actually even worse than you've described it. You've described it very well, but it's even worse than that because it's not, as Jan Crawford kind of implied, that somehow they missed it. You know what I mean? They did. They just, they were working on other things and they were just doing so much, and it was, they're really, really pressed, and somehow this story just somehow passed them by. There were stories that were done, and let me, give more credit to my colleagues at the Wall Street Journal who wrote a story in early June, I think it was June the 7th, 3 weeks before that debate, in which they wrote a long front-page story which quoted mostly anonymous people, to be fair, but there were some people on the record saying that Biden was slipping, that he had been for some time, that he was not sharp, that foreign leaders were concerned about him. There were lots and lots of evidence in that story 3 weeks before the debate. The response to that story then from much of the media was, this is outrageous. It's biased. It's Rupert Murdoch's newspaper having a go at Joe Biden. And do you remember the deep fake stuff? I mean, when people showed those videos of Biden, wandering off, at the G7 meeting or the NATO meeting, and they showed him doing, clearly losing his thread. Do you remember when he was handheld off the stage by Barack Obama? There were claims in the media, instead of just, oh, sorry, we missed this story, we didn't see it. They actively trashed the reporting that said Biden wasn't up to it. You can go back and look in the days after that Wall Street Journal report, and you can see on CNN, in some of the newspapers, people saying this is disgraceful reporting. Biden is as sharp as a tack. He's completely capable. This is a hit job by the Wall Street Journal. So it's much, much worse than just, oh my goodness, we just so sorry we missed this story, as you rightly ridicule. They actively went out of their way to collude with the White House in undermining reporters who were trying to do the story, saying that Joe Biden was actually no longer capable of doing the job.
Right. And then they followed that up by actively working to advance Kamala's, policy makeover when she became the nominee.
Correct. Yeah. No, I mean, the way, look, the media, we've had this conversation many times before, Dan, and I'm happy to have it again, but in the last 10 years, we've always discussed media bias, and we know there's always been media bias, and it's always gone predominantly in one direction. But the last 10 years has seen, I do think, and thank you for mentioning my book, because I talk about this in my book, has seen really the collapse of any sort of sense of media credibility for most of the media today. And by the way, the best testament to that is Donald Trump. And, you know, you and I had many conversations about Donald Trump too. I'm not his biggest fan. He's got many flaws. But they set out to destroy Donald Trump in 2015 when he came down that escalator at Trump Tower in 2015. They set out to destroy him from, you know, using fair means and mostly foul. You know, the Russia collusion story, the misrepresenting what he said, you know, about Charlottesville. Every single thing that they did, they tried to destroy him. And what's the outcome of all that effort for 10 years? Dan, Donald Trump is stronger than he has ever been. He got more votes than he'd ever got. He's got a higher approval rating he's ever got. He's back in the White House in 3 weeks' time. So that, I just say that as testament to the fact that the media's credibility is completely destroyed because they have spent 10 years trying to destroy the political career, and in many ways actually trying to incarcerate the man, and he ends up being stronger than he's ever been. I can't think of a better evidence, and, you know, you mentioned Kamala Harris too, and their attempts to sort of, you know, shove her over the line into the White House. I can't think of better evidence that most of the American people, I'm afraid, have just stopped even paying attention to much of what the media says.
I would say the same thing, too, about some of the sort of legacy Republicans that behave in a lot of the similar ways to legacy media. And, you know, I'm sorry to say it includes some people that I used to like my brother in broadcast to the north, Charlie Sykes. But the Never Trumpers behaved almost as shamefully as most of them, almost as shamefully as the D.C. press corps. And they're a big loser in this, too. And anybody sort of now within the Republican Party who affiliates with that sort of element of quislings within the party is a complete non-starter. Yeah,
look, Donald Trump, one of the things, you know, was it Napoleon said about his generals, you know, the things he would ask about his generals was, you know, is he lucky? Donald Trump is, you know, as well as having many, many talents and many, many flaws, he's an extraordinarily lucky man. And one of the aspects of that luck is the luck in his enemies. His enemies constantly overreach. Again, you know, you and I have talked about this. There's lots of things you can say about Donald Trump that, you know, you can legitimately object to and you legitimately not like. But somehow, for whatever reason, those people you described, the Never Trump types, the sort of the Bill Cristols and that ridiculous outfit, the Lincoln Project, or, you know, you talk about Charlie Sykes and others like that. People who were, you know, hardcore, dyed-in-the-wool, supposedly Republicans who supported Republican candidates in the past. You're right, they joined in with the media, not just in pointing out Donald Trump's flaws, which is a legitimate thing to do, but in going way, way, way beyond that and going over the top and ultimately, you know, putting out, you know, again, joining in this campaign to try to destroy him, in the process, you know, putting out huge amounts of falsehoods, saying things that were just not true, exaggerate everything they, you know, again, and I go back to that, I mentioned it just initially, but to me, one of the turning points was that Charlottesville comment that he made in 2017 after that woman was killed in Charlottesville, and those you know, there was that protest and that went sort of that violent protest in Charlottesville, you know, and he famously said, you know, that he condemned the neo-Nazis and he condemned everybody else, and that continues to be reported by the media to this day, as he said there was good on both sides, and by all of those people you've described, those Republicans who've been trying to pull him down. And that, to me, again, just emphasizes how people have just lost all faith and trust in those people, and are willing to go with a man who, isn't flawed in many ways, but they see his enemies and they think, well, if they're just going to prepare, if they are guilty of the same worse versions of the same accusations that they make against Donald Trump himself, and so, they have completely destroyed their credibility.
Are you as optimistic as many that the election results, Trump's victory and Republicans' control of the House and the Senate, are signaling a move away from identitarian politics and so-called wokeism?
Very much so, yeah. I think there are going to be lots of problems ahead. We already got a little taste of that at the end of the year, didn't we, with the fight over the budget, over the debt ceiling limit, and there's going to be lots of that, and with an even smaller majority in the House, you know, there's going to be challenges ahead. It's not going to be smooth sailing for what Trump wants to do by any means, and that's the way democracy works. That's the way it should be. But your point about about the significance of the election, and what it means for the, you know, for the rejection, in terms of the rejection of those politics, those identity politics that we've had. I am very optimistic. I think and you're seeing it, you know, I mean, you're not really seeing it yet in the Democrats. You're seeing some Democrats saying this, and that's a good thing. Some of them are starting to come, you know, you've heard, you know, from people, you know, people like John Fetterman, the Pennsylvania senator. I think you're going to hear it from some more Democrats in the course of the next few months. Not enough yet, but I think that people, who pushed that agenda, or rather those people who have gone along with that agenda for the last few years, realizing that it's gone too far, that it's alienated people, and that people want to restore, the value, so many of the values of this country, which have been rejected in the last decade or so. So yeah, I do. In that respect, at least, I'm very optimistic that I think the election result is a signal, at least, that this country is moving in the right direction.
Gerard Baker, editor-at-large, Wall Street Journal, author of American Breakdown, Why We No Longer Trust Our Leaders and Institutions and How We Can Rebuild Confidence. Gerard, thanks as always. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Dan. Thanks, Charles.
And he joined us on the Turnkey.Pro Answer line.
This is the morning show more Chicago radio listeners are choosing. This is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
I was in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean when it happened. There was a sudden jolt, and our submarine crashed on the